Coming up next, we have Chit Chat with Manoj. This is hosted by Mr. Manoj Singh, the CEO of Caesar Productions. Mr. Singh's take-home message: life is too short, so be happy and live life to its best. This week, Mr. Singh presents the expensive wedding scenario. His well-known guests are Dr. Munish Mehra and Dr. Ila Dave. Let's take a look.
Welcome to Chit Chat. I'm Manoj Singh. Hello, namaste, adab. On this show, we talk about important South Asian issues. These are issues which are hard to talk about, sensitive. People try to ignore them because of our cultural background. But we all know we have to talk. Talking helps. If we listen to the party on the other side of the table, it helps in coming to a happy solution. Today, we are going to talk about expensive weddings. This is a two-part series. We are talking to the first-generation parents and also the second-generation children. Joining me today are first-generation parents. On my right, Dr. Ila Dave. She's a IT management consultant. On my left, Dr. Munish Mehra. He's CEO of the Quantum Change Group. And first of all, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. Now, putting it in context, this discussion, of course, doesn't matter if you're very rich and want to spend the money on these weddings, but this is more of a discussion for middle-class family who have a limited budget, who have to work within certain constraints. I know of people who take even loans and then they face financial consequences after the marriage. Is it worth it? So my first question to Munish is, Munish, you have two grown-up children who will be in very soon, in few years, will be getting married. What is your perspective?
So my opinion, Manoj, is that what's important is communication and to some extent compromise. I think you have to talk about the issues between the two sets of parents and between the bride and groom, and understand what is each person's perspective and expectations, and see if you're aligned. If somebody can afford to and wants to do a larger show and is willing to bear the brunt of the cost when others may not be able to, then that's fine. But if not, if this is going to be a wedding of a certain size or certain cost, I think you have to compromise and you have to try to make this a happy occasion for all.
That's a good answer. So let me ask you, Ila. I mean, we all agree that marriage is a happy occasion. We must celebrate. But a lot of times we tend to go overboard. It's like peer pressure, trying to please the Joes, the next door neighbors, or the relatives or friends. And some of it comes due to our culture. We grew up with it. We feel like if you don't invite certain people, they might feel bad. We feel obliged. Where do you draw the line? What do you think?
As both of you all said, there's no question about the money, then you can do whatever, spend as much as you want. But here, two different families are coming together. And so it's so important that it's a collaboration and we are all talking and agreeing on what we want to do so that everyone, it's a happy occasion. That's the bottom line. You have to look at it that we are trying to do the best that we can and we want and work with that. The other thing that we need to keep in mind also is that it's the kids, the children that are getting married. They are the focus, and always include them and get their opinion and in making the decisions. Sometimes Indian parents especially, I think this becomes more their wishes getting fulfilled, what they didn't get to do maybe or whatever. And that's what we need to watch out for and not get into that trap.
Yeah. Can you both elaborate more on these points?
Sure. I think, Ila, you bring up a very good point that a lot of times the wedding becomes the show-off party for the parents or one of the parents. I think if the parents want to have a separate party or a reception and want to pay for it fully themselves and can afford it, that's fine. I think they should be entitled to do that. And I think the kids should give parents the permission to have a party if that's how they want to spend their money and that's what they want to do. But at the same time, for the actual wedding and where it's going to take place and how it's going to take place, I absolutely agree with you. It is really the kid's wedding and not the parents' party, which the wedding itself.
Right.
Yeah, I think also putting it in context, people forget that is marriage day itself is not the only thing. I think the real life starts after the marriage. So I think in most cases, a lot of people also help their children with maybe buying a home or buying a car or even paying for their honeymoon. And a lot of times we should learn from the West. We should learn what are the good things here. At least the bridegroom buys the ring for his bride. Sometimes they even contribute for their wedding. So how do we, and more I'm seeing that especially in our community, people are reaching compromises like paying 50-50 or optimizing their list for certain events. So what are your thoughts on this?
I agree. I think you have to compromise and you have to listen to the couple, as Ila, you've indicated. I think the challenges come in when there are differences of an opinion. When maybe the kids want to have a destination wedding and want to fly to the Bahamas and have a wedding there. And the parents are saying, no, we're not prepared to do that. So maybe there'll be some compromise that there is a smaller function here and then the couple can have their wedding at a destination and if they can afford it and pay for it, invite who they want. And then maybe the parents have to step back and say, look, at the destination wedding, you're paying for it, you get who you want to, and then when you come back, we'll have an event here and we'll have a celebration. So I think, there has to be figuring out a solution that eventually works for everybody. What I think is wrong is when somebody dominates the situation and says, we are going to do this, we're going to spend so much money, and you're all going to pay for it. That's really not fair, because that puts a lot of stress on the kids and on potentially the other parents.
Right. So openness and collaboration, I think that those are the two things. Like an example was like we shared in my daughter's son's wedding, we shared the invitations, we sent out one set of invitations. And so, you talk about these things, what makes sense and how we can, cut costs where you can or not, or, whatever works for the family. So there are different ways to do things. You purge where you have to or you want to, which is, meaningful to you, and cut back on other areas where you can.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, as Ila, you suggested, there are many ways you can manage the costs, like you said, sending common invitations. Also, not necessarily inviting everybody for every event.
Correct.
More and more,
Correct.
Yeah.
certain people may be invited for the Sangeet, certain people for the Mehndi, certain people for the wedding, and others for the reception. So, you can be creative in who you invite. And at the end of the day, people say, well, people are going to talk about it or somebody's going to be
Right.
unhappy.
Yeah, it
But,
always- you cannot
as long
please
as the two
everyone.
parents and the couple are happy, you can't please everybody all of the time.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that trend. Not
Yeah.
everybody's not invited to all the functions. We do have a lot of functions, so you can, break that out depending on.
Yeah, what I have also personally seen in some of the marriages I've attended, that the rituals are too long or they go on for days and people tune out, especially if you really didn't know the couple personally. You were invited just because their parents know you. And I think we should start thinking about these things from the time, this context. What was good maybe in the past might not be good now because times have changed. They have become, weddings have become very expensive. On the other hand, we are always trying to please the Joe, the next door neighbor, and in that, there's no limit. We have to draw the line somewhere. Any other comments you like to make, closing comments, or you want to recommend, or any personal experiences you like to share, not mentioning the names?
Not any personal experience, but again, as we were saying, as you mentioned that, children have to know the people that you're inviting. You shouldn't have people that just and the children have no clue who they are, because that makes it very odd for them also. So I think the discussion is the most important thing, and keeping it open and talking about things and agreeing.
Yeah, and I think, in at least in the U.S., a lot of times the kids take a very active role because it is their wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think in the Indian community, it's more often seen as the
Parents
parents'
running the
event.
Correct.
And I think in our generation, maybe that was the case. And most of us, when we got married, I think we let the parents decide what was happening.
Right,
But I think in this day and age, it's very important to more actively engage our children, listen to them, and then communicate, and then compromise.
Yeah, and if you, we all know, if you Google, there are several articles on how to optimize your cost. A couple of things which I read was, number one is guest list, of course, because it directly relates to expenses. People talk about maybe even having might be hard for us, but having a marriage in off season, or having a marriage on a weekday, or if you can't afford a hotel like Marriott Hilton, you can even do it in your backyard with tents. Optimize on catering. A lot of people I've seen, especially in some of the weddings I go to, cakes come very late, and by that time the people have already have their dinners and desserts, so they literally go away. So they've started putting fake cake. They cut a small one, but for the show there is a fake cake. So I think there are a lot of ways, and please go on the internet, you can read. And the most important, I think, message is talk to your children, listen to them. I'm pretty sure you will come to a happy compromise. And any other closing comments?
I think the other thing we're going to see more and more of is cross-cultural weddings, where, again, in our generation, it was within your community or within your sub-ethnic group. But now, the world has grown and expanded, and people are marrying across different cultures, different countries, different ethnic groups, and of course, gay marriages. And I think we have to be open and amenable to all of this change. And, it's a happy occasion for the two people getting married, and we have to celebrate that, and we have to adapt, and we have to be creative in how we manage costs and how we celebrate together.
Yeah, very much so.
Correct. So thank you very much, both of you. I think we got different perspectives, and like I said, please continue this discussion in your home, on your dining tables, with your family, children, with your friends, and also in the community. We need to change with time, and that is it for today. We could continue this discussion for hours, but we had few minutes. We provide feedback, and also let us know what other topic you'd like to talk about in this show. Now, and in the end, like I always say, take it day at a time. Life is short. Have fun. Goodbye, and all the best.